well.
To just start everyone. We started Kaylee's one with the fingers, right? But then now our own version is just you yelling,
Screaming
into the mic. So fuck it, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Oh, I hate saying welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
I'll say it for you.
Welcome back to another episode of Patent Pending.
An episode, what is it? A podcast for creatives.
By creatives.
And today it's just us yet again.
Episode 19 today. We did episode 18 last week.
It was a nice little catch-up episode.
And if you're listening it, you obviously heard it, but we didn't have visuals for episode 18. So
yeah, a little bit of technical difficulties.
The lost files, we'll call it.
Well, we didn't lose the files. It was, we ran into a snafu called audio drift.
Yes.
And couldn't figure it out. I stretched it, tried to fix it as best as I could. And we just couldn't salvage it. So we did audio only. We don't know quite why the P4 recorder was doing that. There was a battery issue. It would eat up AA's like a motherfucker. It would just...
Yeah, but we always used your good batteries.
Yeah, but even still, like it just ate them up so fast that sometimes it would even die in the middle of an episode. So that was an issue. Last time it was saying write issue. So I don't know if it was an SD card issue. It also took a tumble. So I don't know if that was the issue.
Took a little spill.
That's why he was drifting. So we bought a new recorder.
We did. We grabbed the Rodecaster Pro board console.
Yeah, it was on sale because they just came out with a new one. So
yeah, this thing's pretty fancy. We haven't really gotten too crazy into it just yet, but there's a lot of stuff on it. So we're excited to try out this piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear the quality difference as well.
There should be,
because I think it has internal like audio processors that like help. Yeah, I mean we can. I'm a really mediocre photographer, but I'm really horrible at audio. So we can take the help we can get, the help we can get.
If you thought we sucked at photos, wait till you hear our audio.
So
yeah.
I was gonna say, this last episode was like a catch-up episode, how everything's going. I think this episode will be a mustard episode.
A mustard? What's
ketchup and mustard?
Oh, dang!
So this one I think we could just deeper dive into some personal struggles with business and podcasting, and just some overall goals and stuff that we wanted to work on, and maybe a little more personal about our businesses.
Let's get deep in it.
Yeah, let's get deep.
So first, a big topic, off air, Mike and I have been talking about, we've been kind of talking about pros and cons of being freelance versus, being salary or 9 to 5.
Yeah,
still in the creative.
I was going to say, we both have had opportunities over our careers where this has come up. And there's pros and cons either way, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong.
There's no right or wrong. It just comes down to where you're at in your personal life, where you're at in your professional life, and what suits you.
Yeah. For instance, a close friend of mine and Sean's, he was freelancing for a very long time, and then now, he's deeper into his 30s, and he really enjoys having the 9 to 5 security and the structure.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I do long after, is a little bit more structure, especially when we're shooting shows at night. And it would be rad if I could consistently go to bed at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, consistently be up at 7 or 8.
If you had more of a schedule.
Yeah.
A rigid schedule, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily be having it off like a 9 to 5, but maybe just doing more of the same stuff where it's all during the day. But I do love shooting music, and music's always at night. So I think there'll always be a push and pull. Right. So maybe just less night stuff and more day stuff.
Gotcha.
What about you? As far as your structure, do you find... Because you're doing, I feel like you're always up pretty early. You have a good, like, go to bed time.
Yeah, I get, I have a pretty good bedtime. I try to wake up early. I feel like I definitely tend to be more of a morning person, especially with all those years in construction, waking up at 3, 4 a.m. It's just kind of, I don't wake up that early anymore, thank God, but it's still like ingrained.
It's like I was gonna say, it's embedded in your
7 a.m. I'm like, all right, cool. It's early. Plus there's something for me, there's something, inspiring, I guess you'd say, about like morning for me, because it's like a fresh start to a day. And like, it's like no one's awake yet, right? Like,
something that's been new for me as an adult, so say like I work at nights and I go to bed at like 3 or 4, I can't sleep in past like 10 or 11. And when I wake up at 10 or 11, I wake up with immediate anxiety. I'm like, oh fuck, I slept too long. I need to be awake. I should be doing stuff. Yeah,
now the latest I've slept in like the last few years is like 9 o'clock, 9:30.
Yeah, even if you work late. Like say you go to bed like 3 or 4 because you're working.
If I go to bed, to answer your question, if I go to bed at 3, 4 a.m., even 9:30, I'm still up around 9:30. I'm still out of bed before 10 for sure. Like my feet are on the ground type of thing, even if I'm like, it's still tough. Double digits, waking up in double digits is like,
it's stressful.
Yeah.
My brother and I live together, and he does security at a nightclub, but he's 24. And he'll sleep until like 2, 3, 4 o'clock. I'm like,
nah,
I can't.
I mean, in his case, he's also working longer hours than us.
Well, yeah. And I just think he doesn't have that, like, that internal clock isn't embedded in him quite yet. Like I feel, because this is like a newer thing for me. Like maybe like 27, 28. I was like, oh fuck, I need to be awake.
Right.
So I think he's got a few more years. But obviously we're both freelancing. What do you love about freelancing that would be your initial hesitation to taking a full-time job?
There's 2 hesitations, 3. The first kind of hesitation or hurdle would be the schedule. Like I do like freelance because each day I'm not at a place from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 10 a.m., whatever it may be. So that's nice to be like, I could kind of wake up, make my coffee kind of leisurely in a sense and just go about my day. If I have to run an errand, I don't have to schedule that errand after a certain time. Or like, even with my wife, Ivana, she'll be like, oh, I have to call the doctor's office. It's like, well, I'm off work at 4. They close at 4. She's an elementary school teacher. So her schedule is like, I have to call this doctor's appointment or be at this thing, but they close at 5. I'm not off till 4. Like, so you can't do most things during the week.
That's hilarious because I told Crystal, I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to the post office for you, and haven't gone yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm off through the day.
So there's that of like, it is nice to not knowing that I'm going to be at a certain place every single day, Monday through Friday for the most part. The second hesitation would be the fear of missing out on other opportunities that might seem greater.
For sure, the FOMO.
Yeah, the grass might be greener. Like if I'm locked into, a 9 to 5 doing photography.
Well, not even the grass potentially being greener. You could potentially get contacted for a job and then have to say no because you're tied up doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you're shooting let's just go for example, if you're shooting for a clothing store, right? Shooting clothes, shooting sneakers. Mm-hmm. And that's your Monday through Friday. If for whatever reason, EDC's in town and you get hit up to shoot for EDC. Like, I can't because I'm at the office or whatever I'm working. That in hindsight seems a little bit more fun because it's breaking up your day-to-day, like monotony. Shooting clothes. You're like, I could go shoot freaking this festival. Mm-hmm. Oh, you can't because they need you all 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with 1 and 2. What was your third one?
The third one would be the money. So far, the few interactions I've had of being, some sort of photography role, videography role, creative role, is the pay isn't that great.
In comparison to what you're currently making as a freelancer?
In comparison to what I'm currently making as freelance or even before when I was doing my electrical. there was a few opportunities where I'm like, oh my God, that seems great.
Yeah.
You talk about price, or you talk about, not salary. What's the, wow, I don't even,
Compensation?
no, what's the normal, it's not day rate. What's the normal term for your normal job?
Salary. Well, because you could be a salaried employee or an hourly employee.
Hourly. That's what, yeah, geez, wow, that was a huge mental block. So yeah, when the conversation was what they'd pay hourly, it's like, yeah, no, I can't do that for, $11 an hour at that time.
Yeah.
So those are the three. Now let's talk about some of the pros. Is there any pros?
Well, yeah, there are definitely pros. A consistent check every 2 weeks could be a pro for a lot of people, especially people who might be starting out. And, like fortunately last year was really good. So I was able to save up a bunch of money. So I have, like a year, 2 years of living expenses put away.
Okay.
Actually, we can talk about this too. I put it in a high yield savings account.
Okay.
And it's 3.65% interest. So I put $30,000 in there, and that's my $30,000 emergency fund for 1 year living expenses. So I'm making $95 a month on that $30,000 that's sitting in that high yield bank account.
Oh shit. Okay.
So yeah, so I just got my first month of the interest. So now I'm like, fuck, I want to put even more in there because it's just making money sitting in there.
Your money's working for you.
Yeah. So I have that money, and then I have, a bunch of money saved in my business account. So I think having that money makes it easy for me to say no, because I could just pick and choose my clients. But back to what you were saying, somebody who doesn't have that safety net of money saved yet, the salaried position and getting that consistent, money every 2 weeks
What appealed to them?
Exactly. Also, health insurance is a big thing. I thought that I wanted those jobs for the health insurance, but then I priced it out, and decent health insurance is only like $4,000, $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So, some other pros would, some people, I have a close friend of mine who always tells me he became a freelancer later, in his 30s. And he always tells me, I enjoy the structure. I enjoy being told what to do, where to be, when to be there.
Right.
He's like, sometimes it's hard for me to find motivation to push myself to do these things on my own. Now I'm the opposite. As soon as somebody starts telling me what to do and where to be and what time to be there, my first reaction is like,
fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I enjoy holding myself accountable, and I could do both, but getting up every morning, I get up, I make coffee, I go poo poo, and then I make a to-do list, and I'm like, all right, this is what I need to get done today. And it might even be bad because sometimes I'll make the to-do list and then I give myself anxiety because I put too much shit on there and I'm not getting it done. But for the most part, I'm like, all right, I got to wake up, stretch, work out. I got to if I have a day off, like yesterday, I was like, work out, stretch, work out, work on my website, reorganize my shelves in my office,
Good
take
little
the dog to
admin
the
day.
park. Yeah. Just, those things.
Yeah. I think another pro would also be working in a certain field or department or company. There is room to grow within that. That could be a pro for somebody to be like, okay, here I'm, starting out with just photo for whatever it may be, or creative, right? Social media. Well, there's room to grow within this company. Whereas our position, freelance, there's not necessarily room to grow in that measurement. There's just you may get more opportunities to.
Well, yeah, it depends on what way you look at it, because the sky's the limit with your own self.
Well, I mean, in particular, like I said, if you look at, for example, for a hotel, if somebody's in-house for a hotel, there is room to grow for, like I said, you start out as photo or assistant, then you can work your way up
For sure.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Whereas us,
You can start at potentially a more entry-level position.
yeah. Whereas for us, ours is only really going to be either more photo gigs or maybe a bigger one, but there's not necessarily growth in that same measurement to be like, okay,
Yeah,
I got this contract, or I shot this one thing for MGM. Maybe I'll shoot 3 things this month versus last month.
Yeah, another pro/con another pro is that you have a team. Potentially, you're working with the team, so you have a safety net, and you could bounce ideas and grow with a group of people.
Yeah,
like-minded individuals, and you could grow with. That's awesome.
yeah,
That's a pro definitely that I've looked at in the past and been like, oh, the camaraderie aspect and being able to do stuff as a team. But then like another con would be that, if you had a job and you had to be, in the office or something, you're doing X amount of time, in that office doing stuff for somebody else's brand and company.
Right.
What if you took that time and allocated it to yourself and, figured out stuff to better yourself and your company with that time,
You could. The only, well, not the only, but a big caveat with that is here you're getting paid to work on, let's say, somebody else's brand or company, whereas say you're at home or you're working on your own brand, you're maybe not really making money, right? Like if you're investing back into yourself, your own brand or your own, Mike Kate Productions, not necessarily making money putting back into that until, you're only making money for shooting gigs or you're hiring out a team.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no though, because you could also look at it like, okay, today I'm going to reach out to every client I've ever shot and see if they have any new leads for me that will then translate into money.
Good.
So it's like, and then for instance, if you're a salaried employee and they're like, oh, actually like we're going to do like, we need you here on Saturday. We're going to do like an extra thing. That's like, you're technically getting paid for it, but not really. Cause if you already have to work Monday through Friday and they need you extra in your salary, you're not like billing for extra hours, It's like, I don't know. It kind of evens out. I think the whole thing is, just having like that safety net for yourself, Yeah.
And it just depends where you're at. You know what I mean? Like you said, your friend who's in his mid 30s, he seeks that. He wants the structure. He wants the schedule. Whereas someone like you right now, you don't necessarily want that. You're like hesitant, but things may change where you're like, oh, for sure. Fuck, I'm tired of this. Cause I have a good friend of mine, Jace, he sold vintage clothes. Like he found, thrifted clothes and resold them. And he did that for like, I want to say like the last 8 to 10 years. Well, now he has a part-time job and it's funny talking about it. I'm like, why did you kind of revert? And he's like, dude, I needed the constant paycheck and I needed the structure. He's like, I worked for myself for almost 10 years, selling clothes and just showing up every day at this job is a nice change of pace. And so there's always two ways to look at it.
Yeah. I like to think that like I turn my nose up at that. Like I'm a rebel. Like, oh, that'll never be me. I'm going to
I wouldn't say never.
That's what I'm saying though. Yeah. Cause it's like, the person I'm talking about is a good friend of ours, and like, so yeah, I don't know. I think obviously it's not in my wants for
the foreseeable future.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, it's not even really like a thought right now. I mean, nothing's like come across my way to like consider it. But for me, it'd have to be like the opportunity, like so many stars would have to align for me to like really go for that or think about that.
Okay. Another pro would be, if you have dependents,
right?
If you have children,
right? Or
family members that you take care of or something like that, where you need the consistency, where people are counting on you. I think that could be another thing, and like, also I don't want to come off as like knocking.
No.
It's just,
it's not for you right now. And it
could be for me later on down the line.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Cause like I said, there's not one way to look at it. There's definitely numerous ways. And then we've known people who have done the opposite, who have been freelance or been 9 to 5 or salary even in a field and then quit their thing and now work for themselves and do freelance, whether it's photo, graphic
one
design.
of my good friends, we used to live together. We've known each other for almost 10 years. And he was working as a salaried creative. Now he's freelancing. And almost every few days, he's like, dude, I'm so fucking happy. To have the freedom. So what would you recommend? Do you think that a salaried creative position is a good move for somebody starting out in their career?
Yeah. I think if you're starting out, or even not even just starting out, if you're on the, how do I put this? Like the more premature side of things, like, year 2, 3, so on and so forth.
Of your career.
Yes. Then because of all the pros we just listed, you have a schedule, you have a consistent paycheck, and then hopefully you're around a team, like-minded team
who could teach you, and then you could grow further.
Exactly. To learn and grow. And then you just eventually hopefully you could take those building blocks that you've learned from that 9 to 5, and then apply those to whatever you want to do in the future.
Yeah. Another bottleneck that I've like seen, with people who, start in a creative position in a earlier part of their career is I've seen people get like bottlenecked because that company they work for own the gear that they use. So like I would always recommend like get your own stuff. So if you did have a right opportunity to jet,
right,
you have no strings attached. Like you got your own stuff. You could do your job without that company.
Yeah. Or if you at least, had savings set aside for that reason.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think,
which actually might even be better because maybe your gear's dated. If you had liquid cash just sitting around.
Yeah. Save up a few grand that way. I mean, even though you're not using it, you could still have it there on that rainy day, or because I think, I think it's the same thing for, Jeff Batari and Chris who shoot for UFC.
Mm-hmm.
I think I talked to them before when they were Nikon and then they switched to Sony, and I saw them. I was like, oh, you guys are Sony now. And they're like, yeah, UFC went and like bought all.
Yeah.
So that would be that instance of like, my company pays for my gear. Like I'm not shooting my own stuff.
Yeah. But they're also not at the infancy of their careers. They're
definitely not.
They were working professionals. They are working professionals. So like they use the UFC's gear, but they also have their own gear on the side, But somebody who's only like a year or two in and they have like maybe one camera, and then they start working for a company for a few years, and then they buy them all this gear, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to leave. But then you only still have that one camera. Then you're like, oh, fuck, well.
Yeah, well, you could go two ways if we're talking to that person who's at the infancy and, possibly might do that, then I would say either have money saved up.
Yeah.
Or buy a cheaper, less expensive type of thing. That way you could, practice or shoot on the side. Say you're shooting Monday through Friday for, let's say an easy one is a hotel, right? But on the weekends you want to shoot like portraits, downtown or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Buy a cheaper camera. That way on the weekend you could use your own stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of hone in on those other areas of your creative journey.
For sure. I had another question about camera equipment that we talked about when we were getting coffee, and I can't remember it now. I was trying to use it as a segue with, buying like the best equipment that you could buy now versus when you were first starting out.
Oh, are we talking about using your resources?
Yeah, using your resources, exactly.
Using, Mike and I were talking about using your resources available to you.
Mm-hmm.
And meaning, for example, if I have a video shoot and it's real estate, let's say, and I need a gimbal or a stabilizer and I don't own a gimbal. Well, is it going to be worth it for me to buy a gimbal for that one shoot? No, but am I going to use it in the future? Is it going to pay itself off? Then yeah, probably buy that gimbal.
Mm-hmm.
Or on the other hand, if it is that one-off shoot and I know I'm not going to need that gimbal, you could either rent one. There's plenty of those.
Mm-hmm.
I use Lens Pro to go. That's a good little site for rentals. Or you could possibly, hit up friends, try Instagram and say, hey, I could use this, or I'm looking for this.
Rent from a friend.
Yeah. I mean, toss somebody some money, because I'm sure right off the bat, not too many people are going to lend you their camera lens you need, or, gimbal, let's say, because it's their equipment for their job. But there's resources. You could just throw something on Instagram or Twitter, whatever you use, and say, hey, I'm looking for this. I got $50. I'm tight on cash. Could I borrow? Is there anyone out there? I mean,
that's the best way that's a great example for using your resources, Instagram.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe on the flip side, maybe somebody doesn't need money, but they go, hey, you have that lens that I want to try out. Let me borrow
tradesies.
That could work too.
Yeah. And then we were talking about the difference when using your resources, in the later stages in your career versus the start of your career, and how now using your resources could be beneficial. You could buy maybe that more expensive piece of gear for this job because you'll use it and it'll pay for itself. And you could also get the tax write-off, and then you're investing in yourself and your business,
Yeah.
So use your resources. So at coffee, you were telling me a bit of a story about an invoice.
Yes.
Care to elaborate?
Yeah. So I was telling Mike about a unpaid invoice I have. I shot for this company a good 8 months ago. I've sent quite a few emails reminding them. They have all the information, the W-9. They have the invoice itself to pay it. And then I've even texted the CEO contact reminding
Directly.
them. So I've talked to about 4 different people, given the email threads and the CEO who hired me himself, and I haven't got paid yet. And it's kind of frustrating because this is like the only.
Can I ask? We don't have to ask who it is, but can I ask the sum of money? Is it a lot? Is it?
I think it's around $600.
Okay. Yeah. So that's,
it's not a ton of money, but it's definitely
groceries for the month.
Yeah, definitely a few bills. So yeah, I'm usually pretty lenient. I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but yeah, I'm pretty lenient on my invoices and getting paid. I'm pretty lenient on like, okay, things take time or whatever, but this is one of those things where I've followed up numerous times. I tried to close out everything, all my pending invoices before the end of the year, before New Year, which I was successful in other than this one. So yeah, I guess I just have to keep.
Yeah. So you were talking to them, and then now how's the communication?
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. So it's just dead silent, radio silence.
Yeah. On email, on text. And like I said, it's different people. So it's not like they change their email or the number.
Yeah. Cause I've had this issue in the past, and not luckily, knock on wood, I've had great, success with invoicing and getting paid. But I have had it in a couple situations where the person who originally hired me isn't working there anymore.
Ooh.
So I'm just out in the ether.
Yeah.
So then I do have to find somebody else to contact, and then they get it handled for me. But it sounds like they still work there. And then the crazy thing too is that this place doesn't have like a brick and mortar you can go to locally, right?
Yeah. If they had like a physical thing, I would just pop in and then maybe try to handle it that way.
And take out their knees.
But show up with my cousin Vinny. But yeah, that's not the case. So I guess just stay persistent. I don't want to go nasty or like blast anything on social. You know what I mean? I just feel like that's in my personal opinion. I feel like some of those things are kind of petty. Like if you have a grievance with somebody, kind of handle it versus
it kind of like, it almost puts you in a bad light a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it reflects poorly on you more than anything.
Yeah.
I know this companies, you think people are going to really care, but if they hear you like being whiny on social media,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's just like, well, you should have handled your shit.
Yeah. So like, how are some ways, like I haven't really run into this. Like I said, I've definitely waited, like 6 months, 7, 8 months to be paid before. And just because it just gets, lost in like the grapevine.
Right.
But it's always been resolved. I've never been just fully radio silent.
Yeah. This is a new one for me too. Cause I've had to follow up or kind of, track people down.
Do they have a headquarters somewhere?
I'm sure they do. They're
Probably
pretty big. They're a pretty big, fitness company, supplement company. So I'm sure they do. Oh. But I'm just gonna follow up on the emails again.
And then can I ask too? Are they like actively using these images?
They did. So they were video segments of a fitness influencer, I guess you'd call them, and they posted their daily workouts. She was doing a Monday's leg day, Tuesdays, whatever. So they did use them.
So that's bullshit. You should also like maybe follow up and send reference photos to see like this work's been used. Like I need to be paid. Dude, that's such a rough. Did you have like a contract with them or anything?
No, like an idiot. But this is why.
Yeah, so I mean that could be a remedy, but even still though, I've heard like another friend of mine, I've heard that like he had a contract and like still couldn't.
Yeah, contracts still don't really mean shit. Necessarily.
Like, and then unfortunately it's sad to say like $600 to them. There's like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like
we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But so I just got to follow up again. Like I said, I'm going to try the emails again, try texting my contact.
Maybe a phone call, voicemail.
See if there is also phone numbers for the email too. That way I'm checking every box I can and then go from there.
And reach out to the headquarters.
Yeah.
Via phone. Yeah. I feel like once you get somebody on the phone, it's like hard to dodge.
Right. Yeah. Can't dodge me forever. So.
Yeah. Do you is there anything that you've learned from this experience that you would potentially do differently in the future to remedy it?
Contracts would be one. And I should have known this because, like I said, I usually don't do contracts for like weddings or people I know personally, let's say, but like a company,
Yeah.
I always do for these reasons. Like there's so much disconnect between you and that client. So contract would be one. Two would be, we always say in our field, we always try to say, no one gets all of their photos or videos before payment, but unfortunately, sometimes that just doesn't work out that way.
Well, especially with the corporation, typically it seems like in my experience that, they have an accounting department.
If there's
net
net 30,
take time. And then you're like, this is a bigger company. Like they're not going to like
stiff you.
Yeah. It's a little more like, like when you're shooting, like we were talking actually the other day about something, and then it was like somebody was just being not cool, a client that you had, and it was like a wedding sort of like situation, and somebody was being rude, but you're like, no, I'm not stressed about it because like I remedied it and I was paid beforehand. So it's not like they were being rude and weird and like potentially like withholding anything from you because you already got the money up front.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've already like remedied the situation. But you
have a note here. Nerves on photo shoots.
Yeah. So there's like a little bit of a saying that with photography and like photo shoots and video shoots, it's like, if you're nervous about the shoot, that means you care and like you love it. But then also like, I guess the flip side is like, oh yeah, if you're like not nervous, then like maybe you don't care as much. Like for bigger stuff, I'm definitely get nervous a little bit just because I want to do a good job and like I love it. But also too, there's like a cool like feeling, like when you're shooting something that you shoot really consistently, and then you just don't feel nervous because you're confident in yourself and you're confident in your work,
Yeah.
So that's something like, that's like a fun like thing to think about. Cause I remember when I first started out, I first started getting paid for photography. I was like shitting my pants every time I did a photo shoot, and I was like really nervous in front of clients and like I would have a hard time speaking in front of clients. I remember when I first started shooting food photography, I'm still pretty fresh to food photography, like last like 3-4 years. But I, like a thing I didn't struggle with, like I handled it well, but a thing that I disliked was like having them just like fucking peer over my shoulder.
Right.
Like just being, I did a shoot with Pepsi Dig In like a few months ago, and like they had a huge team, and it was just like I remember when we were doing the food portion, it was like 10 or 12 people like just crowded around like watching me. I'm like, it's cool. It's keeping my calm. Just
right.
Like, yeah, I think it's definitely hard.
I think there's both being nervous and not nervous. Like for one example that comes to mind, being nervous is, so on one hand, being nervous is, yes, like you care about it, but it's also because there's a lot going on and you're trying to balance everything. On the other hand, how do I get these thoughts out? So for example, like when I'm shooting my elopements, I want to go into those not nervous, because when I am nervous or a little bit anxious, I tend to, I want to slow down. I want to kind of slow down in the shoot. I want to make, the clients feel comfortable, make sure I'm getting my shots. Cause I have noticed that there's times where I'm nervous. I'm a little, I don't want to use the term frantic, but like there's a lot going on. Cause I sometimes shoot pretty fast. Yeah. And I want the couple to
just feels rushed a little bit.
Almost rushed, like on that verge of like, okay, well, people like if they voice to me like, oh, we don't like post photos, we want candid, we want in the moment. Okay. So in order for me to get you in the moment, you guys got to talk to each other. You guys got to kiss. You guys got to kind of literally be in the moment. And I'm just a fly on the wall. So I'm just shooting and I'm moving. Sometimes I want to slow down though, and just kind of reel it back in and like be in that moment and make sure, the technical aspect of photography is there, not just the candid part of it, right? Like,
yeah, you have to balance both hats. You have to set the moment up and then also document the moment.
Right. So for, like I said, for elopements, I don't want to be nervous because then that energy may show or may come across.
May translate to the client.
May translate of like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing, or like, oh, basically make us feel comfortable. It's our wedding day and this and that. On the other hand, if I'm on, like I had a food shoot last night and I noticed I was a little bit nervous in some parts of it, but that was because there was quite a bit of moving parts. I mean, you have food and some of the food items don't sit long.
Yeah.
The chef will tell you, hey, you got to be fast. Like this won't sit long. So those aspects. And then I'm also switching between, in that case, I'm switching between chef plating the dish and then also turning around and shooting the dish on the table. So it's kind of like two stations in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have like the marketing that you have to like make sure they're getting what they want. It's just,
this one was
also maintaining expectations.
This one was a little bit more stripped down than that. It wasn't as in that sense, but there was a lot of moving parts. So for those things, I was nervous because I was trying to keep my cool and be nimble because chef's telling me one thing, photograph this or hey, grab this. And the guy who hired me, their social media guy, is telling me do this. So it's like trying to find that bob and weave of like, I want to try to please both of you, but sometimes
managing expectations. I think that's
exactly. So I think there's pros and cons to being nervous for shoots.
So can I ask, so yeah, you're at the stage now where you're not nervous for every shoot, obviously.
No, not nervous for every shoot. Just like I said, certain aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. The bigger stuff makes me nervous. It's cool because like shooting music, like 9 out of 10 times, like when I'm shooting a show, I feel like it's like, not that I care. I love it, but it's just like, oh, like this is like bread and butter. Like, and then what I love about that too is like when you're shooting a show for the most part, like you don't really need to talk to anybody. You're in your own little zone.
Right.
You're not managing expectations. You're just documenting. You're just fly on the wall.
Yeah. Well, I think you also know the variables that are involved. Mm-hmm. If you're shooting music, or
that the variables are out of your hands because you can't control the lighting.
Right.
You're just documenting.
That's what I'm saying. You eliminate most of the variables, whereas you're shooting music, right?
The only variable is yourself.
Yeah. Whereas if you're shooting music, you can only control so much. Whereas like you said, you're on that product shoot or that food shoot, you're controlling a lot of things.
Everything.
There's so many different elements to that particular shoot. So
yeah, there's a beauty in like shooting something like documentary style. Like say you have to go shoot, I got hired to shoot like a pride parade one time. Mm-hmm. And like for that instance, it's just like, hey, we need this, this, and this. And you're like, cool. And then you just go and do your thing. And it's like there's a beauty in like not having to like talk to people and being on your own. It's nice. It's like a fun thing, but then it's fun to decipher the crazy puzzle of like a like editorial shoot, Mm-hmm. Like I have a big editorial shoot next week that Sean's going to help me out with. And like, I basically just got like a gigantic shot list and a gigantic mood board. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so I like copy and pasted the shot list, wrote a ton of questions. Like, what's this? And then I was also like, this is all not possible in one day. So that's managing expectations. I also then took it upon myself we have an 8-hour time window to do all these things. And so I basically wrote out run a show for everything. And then I like made sure we had lunch, make sure we have this, this, and this. So I took it I don't know whose job that is. I don't know if it's my job to do that or if it's like the person who hired me's job to do that. But I just saw the window and it needed to be done. So like
I think that's you taking the initiative in this case to let, like you said, manage expectations to say, here's the layout, here's the time frame. We have 8 hours. Here's what I think we can do or not do in that time frame.
And you know what? This is like a first time that I was talking to my girlfriend about it the other day. This is one of the first times that like I was really like really set. It's essentially 4 different shoots in one day. And
Right.
like, it's not possible to do all that in one day. So I told them, and I was really stern, like really like put my foot down. Like, no, like this isn't possible. I was like, it's going to have to be a day and a half.
Right.
And I could do the other like half day on my own. I'm like, oh, well, let me talk to my director. I'm like, yeah, I was like, it's not possible. It's going to be so rushed and the quality of work is going to deteriorate because of that.
Right.
And then even still, like I could see a window where the quality of work would deteriorate if I'm there by myself. So I asked Sean to come and help me because I'm going to start to get tired towards the end of the day. And then the quality of work's going to deteriorate.
Right.
So if I have somebody to keep me sane, maybe bounce some ideas off of and move some lighting, it's going to help so much.
And just help with the workload of, like you said, if you're worried about photos or timelines and somebody moving from one, area of the shoot to the next or moving equipment, then that little bit goes a long way to help alleviate that. You could focus on bigger things versus the little stuff.
Cause like we're shooting at somebody's property and it's really big. So like there's gonna be a lot of different areas for moving shit.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, we could just do a lot of the same products in the same places. And I'm like, so like, that's where I took it. And like, I was really, I told my girlfriend, I was really proud of myself. Like I really like put my foot down and like, why I put my foot down that much is because like, this is like a really high paying job. And like, I'm really grateful for it. But also too, I was like, no, like I'm not going to like kill myself because I'm not going to do my best work. And also if the whole job deteriorated, it would suck and I'd be bummed.
Right.
But financially I'll be okay.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to, I think we were talking about it on a previous episode of trusting your gut, learning from experience in the past where you've probably done that same shoot and it's rushed and you weren't 100% satisfied that you put, your best foot forward. And here you are standing your ground and saying, again, I'm trusting my gut. I've done these things before, or I've done this situation. I got to do things differently. So I'm not in that same space as before.
Well, because in the past I would just say yes.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, we could squeeze it in. And then I see myself like feeling that franticness, being like, oh fuck, we're running out of time. Like for instance, it's happened in the past with like food shoots where like restaurant opens at 4, we'll do a shoot from like 12 to 4, and they want to just like do more and more stuff, and then we start to run out of time, and then we're like still cleaning up while the restaurant's open.
Yeah,
and it's like
running into service.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like they're doing pre-shift, and they're like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Like just cleaning stuff up. Yeah, so I was really proud of myself for that one, and I want to do that more in the future.
Good,
and that's just managing expectations. That's just being like, hey, this is unrealistic.
Oh, it's managing expectations and also communication.
Yeah,
you're letting that person on the other end of that know this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
And then what I need to do in the future again is when the workload's that big, I'm paying you out of my rate.
Right.
So in the future, I'm saying this is big. I need to add an assistant.
Extra budget for this and that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the next step. Has there anything that you've done that recently that you've like noticed that you're like, oh, I should do this better than you've like done it?
Yeah. One thing comes to mind is, for example, I had a shoot for a hotel here in town, and it was kind of a mix of a few different bars within their property. But that shoot, so it was food and beverage based, but I was doing photo and video in the same shoot.
Yeah.
And within that, so I'm doing photo, I'm also grabbing some video to make a reel. And then we're at 3 different locations on property. So that's moving lights for the photos, video, yada, yada. So that's one thing where, and I knew it going into that of like, split it up, do only photo or do something, because juggling all those things of the 3 locations in the time frame plus photo plus video, it's way too much.
I think we've talked about this specifically, the hybrid shooting on certain jobs.
The hybrid shooting is
impossible.
That's a big one for me that I really need to stand my ground on, and either bring in a video person to do that part of the process, add a higher budget for that to bring that in, because that's double the workload. Splitting things up, meaning you want this done in 3 hours, it's going to take 6, or vice versa. So yeah, again, trusting my gut and just learning from these past experiences that managing expectations and communication.
Another thing that we were talking about at coffee before we did this podcast was There is a bit of a lull right now in my workload. And I think you said the same thing. It was like crazy last year. New Year's, CES, and then now it's just like a little lull.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like, I shot this cool event where they had like I don't even know what you would call this person, but like a financial forecaster. Like he was just like an expert in finances. And
okay.
But he was saying that this year we're going to run into like a little bit of a recession. So I don't know if like right now the recession's starting a bit, or if obviously it's just Vegas. It's after the holidays. So there's a little bit of a lull in tourism, the above probably.
Yeah. I think so. I think mainly, it's the January. There's no big events, no big holidays. And then everyone's recovering from the Thanksgiving, the Christmas, the New Year type of.
Yeah. But what I wanted to talk about was that we were just saying like what we've been up to essentially, and like how we're using this goes back to like having the motivation.
Right.
It's like now we have more free time than normal, and maybe even more free time than we like, but how are we using that to our benefit?
Right.
So yeah, what have you been up to?
For me,
with that free time,
I've just been trying to kind of brainstorm about what it is I want to do moving forward, but what sort of projects do I want to do moving forward? If that makes sense. Meaning,
no, totally.
For example, like putting. I've mentioned this before. I just need to I've been shooting a little bit more.
Put it out to the universe.
I've been shooting a little bit more, but I need to kind of be more consistent and then put things out, is like investing in myself more and putting more into like YouTube, or just filming myself a little bit more on this side of the camera, whether that's us doing our podcast.
It's like telling the story of yourself.
Yeah. Or just doing like camera review, film review, things of that nature that like I'm into, because I'm into film and I do have nice cameras and lenses.
That'd be sick. You do camera reviews for film cameras.
Right.
That'd be sick.
And then just also showing off different films, what they look like, because they do different things. It's like a edit or preset, right? Like you can have variations. So I'm just trying to see these other platforms landscape, the TikToks, the YouTubes. And like I said, just kind of look ahead and see what I could do differently moving forward to expand my toolbox versus just taking photos or doing video and then, showing that here's a finished photo or finished video product.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you? I noticed you said you were updating your website.
Yeah. So, let's see here. Yeah. So yesterday, for the last it's kind of sad. Last week, I've been updating my website, but it sounds funny. My buddy Kyle was giving me a hard time. He's like, "Oh, you're not done yet. You're not done yet." Every time I talk to him. But I haven't updated in about a year. Right. So I first had to brainstorm what I wanted to put on there. And then I had to go to my long-term storage system and then go find the photos and then re-export the photos. And then, I probably had 50 events, let's say events or gigs or whatever that I wanted to pull from. And I'm pulling 10 to 15 photos each. So I'm going through all those gigs, re-exporting them. And then I'm almost done exporting all the stuff I want. And then now I have to then cull down a little bit and then put it in the website and then reorganize the website a little bit.
Yeah.
Working on that. And then the other big thing I've been working on is just getting better at accounting and just finances and overall I want to be a better businessman.
Okay.
Business person. So I've been doing a bit of studying about, taxes and, where to put money and what are good deductions and cause for instance, last year you could put as a freelancer, you don't quote me, but this is what I've learned. It's my understanding. Last year you could put up to $6,000 in a traditional IRA account, which is tax deferred.
Okay.
So, and you could put that $6,000 in the traditional IRA account all the way up until April 14th.
Okay.
Towards the previous year.
Oh, for 2022.
You and I could put $6,000 in a traditional IRA account, a retirement account. And then that $6,000 is a deduction for our previous tax year.
Oh.
And now this year, to my understanding, it went up from $6,000 to $6,500.
Okay.
So now you can put up to $6,500, which is $571 a month.
Right.
So, and then that money is tax free after 59 and a half. And that's basically the end of my knowledge. So
Stops there.
yeah, so like that, getting better at my taxes, getting better at my invoicing as well.
Right.
Because I'm pretty good at my invoicing, but a lot of these other clients that I have that aren't like big corporations or resorts on the strip, who I send like PDF copies of invoices to, I just learned on QuickBooks, you can get like how you share an image, how you share a folder on Dropbox.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing with your invoice. You can get a direct invoice link off of QuickBooks.
Okay.
Send them a PDF, and then also in the email under the photo link, you send a direct payment link, and all I have to do is click, and then they pay it.
Oh, beautiful. They can just
Yeah.
pay with like their card.
Exactly.
Yeah. And is there a fee from QuickBooks each time, like a percentage?
Yeah, I think if you use a credit card, it's like a 3% charge or something. Either way, it's charged on them though, not me.
Right.
So I always say, hey, here's a payment link if you choose to go that direction. If not, a paper check's always good as well.
Okay.
Let me know. So then you give them the option. It's like, hey, mail it to my house. I don't mind waiting. Or if you'd prefer, like I have a gig on the 4th that I'm shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I sent them the link. They already paid it. And I haven't even shot the event yet.
Oh, nice. Very rare.
Yeah. Well, then it's a little weird too. Cause I'm like, oh shit, what if I like,
What if something happens and I already have the money? Yeah.
I mean, it's a good friend of mine who's like producing this concert, but so like it was cool. But I was like, fuck. I was like, you should just wait until like the day of or something.
Right. Don't give it to me too early.
I've been working on that. I'm getting better at like taking notes and like writing a to-do list every day.
Okay.
I did this other thing that I was like told to do by a mentor of mine. So every month now I broke down the money that I made. Mm-hmm. So I have all my paid invoices for the previous year. I tallied them up, put them in month by month. So I know how much I made every month.
Right.
So I know how much I need to make the previous month. And then now I have a rough estimate of how much I made last year.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay.
Right.
So
Hand scribble it.
I never did that. Yeah.
My only thing is that I need to get better at in the accounting department is always keep track of my weekly of what was paid. Mm-hmm. And then I tally up each month. So January was X amount. Mm-hmm. And then on my giant calendar, I have each month the previous month. So if I'm in March, I have February's and then January's to look back on. The part that I need to be better at is I am really bad at keeping track of expenses.
Okay. That was my next question.
So I keep track of my profit or my income, not profits, but I need to get better at what I spent too. Because if you look and you go, oh, wow, I got paid $6,000 this week on all these pending invoices. Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds great. Like, well, yeah, but you also spent $3,000 this week on various things too.
Yeah. So that's the third step I need to take. Is like, yeah, what I'm spending my money on monthly. But the step before that is I tallied up my monthly expenses, like my fucking living, like my do or die living expenses.
Right.
So all my bills, all my subscriptions. And then I also put on there, like $200, $250 a month for gas, $600 for groceries and food.
Right.
So that's how I got my number for my 1 year of living expenses, is because my monthly total
is up. Yeah.
Now I know if there's another pandemic, I need X amount of money to live comfortably, to continue living the way that I am. And I can cut back if I needed to.
Yeah.
But, so that was the other thing. And that really like put it into perspective. And ironically, I ballparked it in my head and I like was almost spot on.
Nice.
So yeah. So then also while we're on that topic of stuff that we're working on personally to help with our businesses, I wanted to ask you, we kind of touched on the last episode, but what are some, it doesn't even I want to know like personal, maybe business, and then also like our combined goals. Like what are some goals for like 1 year and 5 year?
So 1 year goal, it kind of just ties in with what I'm trying to work on is just investing back into myself. Investing back into myself. And like I said, maybe there's different avenues to make money and other than just going out and making money based on physically shooting each time just to make money.
Yeah.
So whether that's I get to a point where it's, YouTube ads or revenue or TikTok ads and revenue, or who knows about Instagram, it's kind of like, funk still,
like
but
passive income.
something, more passive income.
This podcast, hopefully.
This podcast is another one I'd like to get to a point where ideally we have a studio space, not only just for the podcast, because that's kind of like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, you don't need a studio just for
like
a podcast.
For a sole purpose, you want to be multi-purpose area.
Yeah, I would like to get to a point where we have some sort of creative hub where we do our podcast, we do shoots if we need to do, studio or headshots or product. We, have like a creative hub of just to meet up with other people and have coffee and some sort of, little melting pot.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that for us, or for me initially, I think that's like a 5-year goal potentially. Yeah, definitely want to just stay consistent with this podcast and keep it growing. It's actually really nice right now that like we've had a lot of free time, because it's like, this is so painless to do.
Right.
But like, I remember last summer we were both like, fuck.
Yeah, I think you and I now are getting into a flow of, for example, we were supposed to have a guest on today and she's a little under the weather, so she couldn't make it. And so instead of Mike and I canceling, we decided, well, if we were already going to film and set up and everything, let's just go ahead and do it anyway. And let's keep the mojo rolling versus pulling back.
Yeah, let's pivot,
Yeah.
And I think it was good. And we were a little concerned about what to talk about. And I think, dude,
I think we're already at,
and we have even more. We're at an hour. We have even more.
Yeah. So
what about some other goals? Do you have any other goals? We don't have to get too personal, but maybe goals like for your home or, with your family.
Yvonne and I like to travel a lot. So traveling is nice. We already have a summer vacation planned because she is off summer. So we try to take advantage of that.
She's shaping the minds of our youth.
Dealing with your shitty kids. I would like to finish our kitchen or start it. That's the last big area we haven't renovated in our house. And we've been here for 5-6 years now. So I want to get that going.
Yeah. Looks good though. It's not like out of place. Mine, we did our floors in the whole house, and then the kitchen's just like a sore thumb. You're just like, oh, that definitely doesn't go. Like that needs to be redone.
Yeah. But that's basically it as far as things outside of work, house renovations, maybe the garage. I just need to figure out storage because it's fucking mixed bag of nuts in there. What about you?
So for a year goal, I want to be a better businessman, and I want to build more clients because like I have a couple like decent clients that I have a lot of wonderful clients, but I have like some more bigger ticket clients that I'll like consistently work for throughout the year that make a good chunk of change. So if I like coming to a realization, like if that client were to like something were to happen, I would be okay financially, but like it would still be a chunk of money that I would prefer to have than not have. Right. So I want to build a better network of clients. So I actually want to learn how to get more clients more efficiently and better. Like if that's cold calling or reaching out to previous clients that I had to see if they have any colleagues or other things that they need solutions to.
Okay.
Keep saving money. I want to buy a house. I inherited a house with my brother after my mom died. So we lived there. So it's our house, but I didn't, put a down payment.
Right.
Buy
it's not your baby.
Yeah. I want to get, fully get a house on my own with my girl. That's like a good 5-year plan that I want to do. Maybe get married.
Ooh, Crystal, if you're listening.
5 years. Not, yeah. That would be cool. Yeah, that's about it. I just want to keep growing as a person. Oh, and overall personal health. I just want to be as healthy as I can, I definitely did some drinking, some partying, and enjoyed my 20s. And I think that, I have grown out of that, and I'm fucking so over it. I just want to be healthy. Yeah. It's weird. It's like when you do healthy things, like your brain feels healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Healthy habits creates, like healthy mindsets.
Yeah. And I think, I think everyone needs that, but I think especially, being your own boss and work for yourself, it does tie into, self-motivating and self-starting and, those things. Cause if you're in shitty habits, whether it's waking up late or drinking or eating crap food, and you're not motivated to organize your office with your stupid hard drives and all your cords and all your crap, or go to that shoot, and it's just going to overall affect you. But if you're, motivated and energetic, then I think
like I want to build healthier habits that like are not just like things that I'm doing, but like turn into habits that like I'll do for the rest of my life.
Right.
So hopefully I don't like die in my 40s.
Yeah, no shit, dude. Or even 50s.
Yeah, 50s.
I think like 70 is 70 to 75 is like a good age to go.
Yeah, my grandma's in her 80s now. Despite like she's like not in the greatest health, but I look at her and I'm like, oh dude, if I was like, I tell me, my girlfriend joke all the time, we're like, dude, I'm gonna fuck yeah.
Don't let me get just that point.
Yeah. So another cool thing that another cool conversation that we had, you know what? I'm sorry. We'll get to that next.
Let me check the video real quick.
Yeah. Still rolling. So another thing that to transition from what we were just saying, do you have any other goals for this podcast? More specifically with the podcast? I know we talked about like just consistently doing it and growing it.
Goals would be 1, consistency, obviously growing it. 2 would be to have some sort of studio and some sort of capacity, some sort of space where we don't have to set up each time. It's kind of there, and then the space is there, and that'll also lead or tie in with us being creative because we have a space, right? We're inspired. 3 would just be to have guests on that we want to talk to, and that's always a thing versus right now we're kind of like in a phase where we'll do like filler episodes, or you and I will just catch up. But ideally it'd be nice to be like, we always have guests, that people we want to talk to, people that want to come on too. Because that's another problem that Mike and I run into. We've reached out to friends, people we know personally, but they're like, oh, I don't want to be on camera, or I'll get around to it. So ideally I'd want people on that want to be on.
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't criticize anybody who's like iffy, because even sometimes like when we get on here, I'm iffy about it. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm on camera. I get like insecure. Not saying they're insecure, but like I personally will get insecure. Like, oh, I'm on camera. People are going to see this.
Right.
And it's just like, it's actually a fun challenge to get over it.
Yeah.
It's like a fun growing.
Especially when the camera is halfway across the house.
Yeah. We look good though.
But yeah, just things like that. And then, like I said, just one day it'd be like its own actual life form versus kind of like this side thing. I'd like to be it more of a thing that's taken serious, I guess I would say. That could be for us to take serious, or just in general.
I'm trying to like think, like this is episode 18. 19. It's episode 19. So think about like when we started, 15 episodes ago, like in the very beginning.
Right.
Like I'm already taking this way more seriously than we were previously.
Right.
And then especially after the beginning of the year, like we like sat down and had a meeting about it. And like, it's like, all right, do we want to keep doing this? Like if we're going to do it, we got to do it all the way. There's no like half-assing it, And I think now Sean and I are like fully motivated. We've always been on the same page. So like we're even more on the same page now.
What about you? Is there any?
No, those goals align directly with mine. Yeah. This is like when we're really busy, it feels a little burdening to have to make the time when we're exhausted to do this, but it's something fun and I enjoy doing it. So it's something that I want to obviously keep doing. But with that being said, we were speaking earlier about, sometimes, in freelance fields, people will incorporate a finder's fee or a referral fee when they refer jobs out to other people. Right. I've heard it a lot, in other freelance lanes, and it comes up every once in a while with photography here in Las Vegas. But we were just touching on it. Do you do finder's fees? Do you do a referral fee?
No, typically no. There's only been 2 2 or 3 instances where I had already had a client, I already had the deposit, and I had to leave town for a reason. And so I passed off those gigs to other colleagues. So in those instances, because that client was directly already through me, I had a finder's fee.
And you had a deposit already.
And I had a deposit. So yes, in those cases, I did have a finder's fee. In all other cases, when I get an email and I'm unavailable or whatever it may be, somebody's looking for something, and I just pass it along. I just throw names. Here's who's good, or here's who's available. No, I don't, because I didn't really do anything in that sense.
Yeah, I am on the same page with you. I've done it, I think, a couple of times with a friend of mine. I kind of look at it as, and this might be a little optimistic, but like 8, 9 out of 10 times, if I'm referring somebody, it's a friend of mine.
Right.
For instance, you.
Right.
I have like 5 people that I refer. And those 5 people, I want them to take the work and I want them to have the work. But also too, there's a sense of a finder's fee, because it's not saying I'll ever call on it, but it's like, if they're in that situation, I know that then they call on me.
Right.
To fill in for them.
Right. You're like, top of the list for them to think about you when they can't take a gig.
It's more of a communal thing.
Right.
But then there's finder's fees, but then there's also subcontracting.
Right.
Which is different.
Right.
Which I have subcontracted.
Right.
And that was cool. I was like, oh shit, this is kind of nice.
And subcontracting is when somebody, for example, when I shot for you, and it was directly under you, under Mike.
Yeah. But for that instance, I made no money off of it. I gave you the full sum.
Right.
But in other times I've subcontracted, you take a little off the top for yourself.
Right.
Which is a very common practice. Then I always feel kind of weird about it. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I think that if you are investing or taking time out of your day to middleman, for example, if John hits you up and needs photos for an event next month, and then now you are texting 5 different people to see their availability and the details that here's the rate, here's the details, it's at this place, it's this, yada, yada, yada. Then you go back to the client and all this. If you're kind of facilitating those things, then I think a finder's fee, and it doesn't have to be crazy, it doesn't be like half of the freaking rate. But if let's say, for example, this, the budget for this event is $200 an hour, and you tell whoever you're passing it to, hey, the rate's $175, $150, whatever. And you just take, like I said, you make $150 under 3 hours.
Yeah.
Then, and they agreed to their rate, and it's not like you told them $150 and then they say, okay. And then you go, oh, well, I'm also taking $50 on top of that an hour. Then they'd be like, well, fuck you. So in that instance, then I think a finder's fee is justifiable because you're facilitating. Yeah.
The way that it feels most appropriate is like if you're subcontracting, but then you need to build like a team.
Right.
It's like you have a gig, you need multiple people for this. Then it's a little easier because then you're facilitating a team, a solution to what they need.
Yeah, they're representing you still because Mike brought in, 2 videographers to help out with this thing, and you're doing photos. Your workload is a lot more than just showing up, than that person showing up and shooting video for you. I think there's a time and a place for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
because again, we also want to get to a point where we don't have to physically, put our hands on a camera to make money. I mean, that would be the smartest.
Or you can make passive income while you're already shooting. Like you're already doing something and then you subcontract out because you can't physically be there.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't really have much of an interest in like having like a giant group of people that I'm consistently subcontracting out to, but more just like
different type of stress
here and there. Yeah, here and there would be cool. Or like building a team for specific events, not like a consistent team, but like, hey, this team, hey, Mike, we need 2 photographers and 2 videographers. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get 1 more photographer. I'll get 2 more videographers, and then boom. It's more of like a one-off thing, or like
you have on your notes, it also kind of ties in with stepping on toes. Now, in the situation where you do refer somebody for a gig.
You keep playing footsie under the table.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's the first time at the table.
So there is an instance where you refer somebody because you're unavailable, you're already booked, and then they get that, and then they potentially now get that contact, and that contact potentially sidesteps you because that new person is fresh on their brain, or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, as long as you're not like doing it maliciously, then I don't necessarily think it's stepping on toes. And especially like if like somebody refers me to cover them and then they hit me up again, that client, like, hey, you know, what about this? I always try to refer back.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's the most etiquette way to do it. If somebody refers you and then that client goes with you and then hits you up again, you go, well, hey, did you talk to Mike?
Yeah.
Mike's who gave me the gig in the first place. And if they go, yeah, Mike's unavailable, or, you know, we want to go through you.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I did, kind of everything I could.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. And then I feel like a little like dirty sometimes, even if you're like super professional about it and nice and like, yeah. Cause like, what's like the classic thing? Like, oh, well, I liked your photos better. It's like, well then fuck. It's like shit.
Right.
And then what are you going to say?
No, you can't. Yeah. I liked your, your work was better, or I liked being around you. You were professional communication. You were on time, this, that, and the other. That's not nothing you can do bad. That's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had that happen last year and the year before, and it got like a little weird and awkward. And then somehow like, yeah, they were like, oh, well, we like your work better, so we're going to have like you do it instead. And then like something happened where like the other person finagled it. And then all of a sudden, then I wasn't working. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Let's keep it professional. I'll just move on.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to touch on something else, but I can't remember. Oh yeah. So what I was going to say was basically, I feel like in Las Vegas, and I feel like also in other areas where there's like our community of photographers and videographers, I feel like there are clients that will we all kind of sometimes shoot for the same clients.
Right.
It's like, oh, hey, like I booked Mike for this. It's like, oh, Mike's not busy. So then I booked Sean, and it's like, oh, and then you just kind of see these clients, you see these people working with these clients you've already worked with.
Yeah. And
it's kind of just like a little like melting pot. So I try to keep it cool with everybody and like try not to get like bummed out or discouraged, because it's like that client just needs a solution to their problem.
Right.
So, and I feel like too, if you keep it cool and cordial and professional, it always will come back to you.
Yeah. You can't let that turn into possibly negative energy if it's something that you can't really control. You did your best, or you were professional with the client. You even sent them that follow-up text or email reminder saying, hey, if you need this or that, I'm here.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Here's another situation. For instance, I saw some people doing a shoot for a client that I, worked with for a while, and then, stopped. There was no conversation even why we really stopped, but I'm assuming it was price. Right. It's just too expensive. And then you see these other people doing it and you're like, oh shit. Like, I wonder if they're doing it for cheaper, or if it's just like weird. And then there's like a little bit of like, maybe like resentment towards the client a little bit. Have you ever run into any situation like that? Yeah. It's like somebody's like banging your ex and you're like, oh, well, what the fuck?
Yeah. I've kind of ran into that situation. Yeah. Where shooting for a client, and then you see someone else and you're like, well, what did I do wrong, or why? Yeah. I just assume, they were cheaper.
Yeah.
Or even free. And you're like, well,
it's funny too, because if you compare your work to maybe the new person's work, and you're like, well, there's a bit of a discrepancy in quality, but
yeah, I mean, I go through those all the time, like not to, put anybody down, but I'll look at certain, people's work and I'll compare myself. That's just nature of human nature.
Yeah.
Nature of human nature. And I'll look at my work and be like, dude, that sucks.
So I do this fucking crazy thing where I'm on Instagram and I'll see a situation like that. And then I immediately click on my Instagram and I just look at my work. I'm like, no, we're good.
Right. So there's that where, you see something and you go, what the fuck? My shit's way better. Right. But that's assuming that the person, whether they hired, that person or not, that's assuming that person understands or notices, let's say, quality. because they may not. Because like I said, you could look at a photo or a video or whatever maybe and go, well, that's trash, or fuck, they couldn't have cleaned up that thing in Photoshop or this, that, and the other. I would have done it, or I would have done way better. But like I said, that's us assuming that that person sees that quality. They could go, well, this looks great. And you go,
they could just be seeing their friend, that they want to hire their friend.
They could see that too.
I feel like that's a big thing in Las Vegas. Probably everywhere, but you know,
I mean,
hiring the person they know better.
Person they know better could be, but like I said, I try to not let those self-doubts creep in. I stand by my work and I know my work is good. So if that thing comes my way or comes back my way, then it is what it is. If not, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm basically running off of that. I'm just I'm running off self-doubt.
Because like I said, I think the biggest thing is that we're assuming that let's say we'll call him the client. We're assuming that client understands or notices the quality of work between that photographer and my work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they don't, well, then you go, well, yeah, no wonder.
Well, it's good to hear that you feel that way as well.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was just going crazy, but yeah, it's like constantly. So like, that's a lot of the time where I'm like, I like will literally like, I'm like, dude, I gotta get off my fucking phone.
I mean,
I feel like it's because how do you know that other people are doing these other things? Social media.
Right.
So you got to just like detach yourself.
Yeah. You got to take a step away and not do the comparison game, whether it's comparing for a good reason, like inspiration, like, fuck, dude, I could get that gig and I know I could shoot that, or that would be fun. Or it's the other comparison where it's like, wow, they went with that person, or wow, that person shot like that sucks.
Well, yeah. It's like comparing yourself like to the new person that your ex is dating.
Right.
You're like, dude, I'm way better looking than that person.
Yeah. So
it's not healthy.
It's not healthy, but it happens. It's human nature. We're going to look at it and go, oh, well, good luck.
Are there any other directions that you want to explore in your photography or explore more that you're currently exploring? If that makes sense.
I'm pretty good in my music, sports, and weddings.
Or just creative in general as well.
But I do like food shoots. Food photography is fun. It's not a huge percentage. I feel like in 2020, I had quite a bit of food under my belt, I guess you'd say. Now it's not as much, but those are always fun. Those are always challenging in a good way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I guess short answer is also just trying to be more creative in whatever that may be, like just in general, instead of just being like, here's a photo or here's a video. Like,
yeah, like tying into what you said previously about filming the BTS stuff of what you're doing and who you are.
Just trying to add more value to what it is that I feel like I do.
Yeah, that's good.
What about you?
Yeah, so if I could, do more editorial shoots, like how we talked about earlier about like having like shooting a show is cool because like you don't have to stress. It's all out of your control.
Right.
The only person you control is yourself. The fun thing about editorial stuff and food photography is that you can control every little aspect of it.
Right.
So I think I'm okay at still life photography. I want to get even better. I want to grow as a better still life photographer. I've been saying it for a while. I gotta get a little better video. I gotta incorporate more video. Unfortunately, like I love video. I just like in times past, I haven't so much photo work that like, I'm busy throughout the year. So it's hard for me to like sit down and like learn something new. It'd be cool to like learn like 3D design, like Blender would be cool. Yeah, just like fucking barely have enough time in your lifetime to get good at one thing.
Right.
Let alone multiple things. So it's hard. It's like, do I take that time to learn Blender and video, or do I take that time to get even better at what I'm already decent at?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough question. Just for argument's sake, you could look at what could potentially bring more return on your investment. Is taking your photography to another level gonna benefit you and open more doors? Or is that just gonna obviously slightly elevate and make some more money?
Yeah.
Or is you learning Blender and video open up a whole new set of doors because now that's a whole new lane, or again, a project that already has a photographer on doesn't need it. And then normally you wouldn't have gotten it. But here, if you're like, oh, fuck, we need an animator, or we need videographer, you're like, I got you.
Yeah, I think for video, it's more plausible. I don't know about Blender. Blender would just be like a fun, creative thing to do.
Right.
But,
and that's what that could be. That could just be a creative outlet. Or maybe at some point when you get to where you're, good at video, you could incorporate Blender stuff and just have, like I said, animation or whatever in your work.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely get better at still life. And I think this year, I want to shoot more like festival, bigger event stuff.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm on the track to do it. Only time will tell. See where we land this year. Yeah. Cool. Do you have anything upcoming that you're excited about? We touched on, we have that shoot next week that we're doing together.
Yeah.
It'll be exciting.
Helping Mike out on a shoot next week. Nothing really exciting coming up. We have another gig next month. We have another one. End of February.
And then October too, I think. I'll need another person in October.
Yeah. For me, nothing really exciting coming up. A couple weddings to round out the month and some leading into February. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing super huge as of right now.
Yeah. Cool. I think that about wraps it up.
That was a good session. Hour and a half.
Yeah, that was. Anything you'd like to say to our friends?
No, but yeah, Mike and I would like to have more guests on.
So if you reach out, if you are interested.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you live in Vegas and you're creative and you want to jump on, shoot us a message or a text. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. You know what? Even if you're from out of town and you would like, and you're in town for, something, let us know. Yeah. We want to open up the doors to everybody, I think, in the future.
Yeah.
We want to focus on Vegas, but there's only so many people in Vegas.
Right. There's only so many people that want to be on camera.
Yeah. Well, bye-bye.
See ya.